Hello, everyone. Welcome back to part two of The Home is Where the Haunt Is Sew Along. My name is Kim and I'm from Kimberbell. And if you are new to this sew along, well, it's not too late to jump right in. What I'm doing is I'm going to walk you through some of the steps and tips for making this new pillow called Home is Where the Haunt Is on your embroidery machine. How cute is this? So if you are new here, this is part two, but it's not too late to go back and watch part one. That was filmed on Monday. You can still find part one here on our Facebook page or even on our YouTube channel and jump in right then. On part one, we did some of these applique blocks, like the witch hat here, the haunted house, and the pumpkins. I also showed how to quilt these blocks in the hoop with the Kimberbell quilting designs, and I showed you how to use clear blue tiles if you do not have a hoop that's large enough to quilt these background blocks. So if that sounds interesting to you, head back onto Monday's episode where I shared those things. All right. Now, today, though, we are going to talk about a few other techniques that are going to be really helpful when you go to sew this or embroider this pillow. What we're going to be talking about are these pieced blocks. These are actually pieced in the hoop right here. You're going to love the piecing technique in the hoop because talk about precision. You're going to have the most precise blocks you ever did see because the embroidery machine is helping a lot with that. And I'm going to show you how to do the quilting as well on top of those blocks. All right. And I will show you how to do this broom block where the quilting is on the background, but it's not on top of the broom. So stay tuned for that. Let's see, here's another pieced row that is part of this download. And once I show you how to piece these blocks, it's going to be really easy to know how to do these ones as well. All right, so we will cover that. We will also cover this mummy block, and this mummy block is so darn cute. Look at the texture on that, and that is all made with a bunch of white strips that were torn to give it that mummy wrapped look. So we'll talk about some tips with that. And you know what? I'm going to show you how to cut some of these blocks with orange pop rulers. So stay tuned. If we were to walk through every single step, we might be here all day. We don't want to do that. I want you to just pick up on some fun techniques, some good techniques that you can go, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, now I'm going to go do it. And then of course, refer to this video often in the future as well. All right, Susan says, so glad to see you again today. Yeah, Susan, you've got Kim this morning and this afternoon because if you were with me this morning on Facebook and YouTube, I actually did What's New Wednesday from my sewing room, and we talked about Candy Cane Lane. Let me quickly mention something about that Candy Cane Lane that I probably failed to give you enough information to understand what I was saying, if you will, before we get started on this block. Okay, so if you were part of the Candy Cane Lane this morning announcement about that being available, what I want to reiterate is that it's not available like today. You're not going to go into your quilt shop and be able to find it on the store shelves today. You won't even probably be able to find it in your quilt shop for about 2 more weeks. And that's because there's several factors involved in something like that. It takes, Kimberbell sending out our stuff, which is going out this week to shops, the patterns and such. But if you ordered quilt kits or fabric kits for that, there is some backup on that from the manufacturer. And so quilt shops will not have that yet. So just so you know, it will be probably a couple more weeks at least for it to actually arrive to stores, and then for those stores to be able to turn around as quickly as possible. I know they're anxious to get it, to then send it out, because all the stars have to align, right? And then those things get sent out together. So just know that may be the case. Now, the other thing I want to make sure and mention, because I saw in the comments earlier, a lot of people are confused about the term pre-order. And when I use the term pre-order, a shop uses the term pre-ordering your Candy Cane Lane bench pillow or pre-ordering your clear blue tiles. What that actually means is that you are guaranteed to get that product when it arrives to the store. When it finally arrives to the store has your name on a pre-order list, and then they send it out to you. Pre-order does not mean you get it first, because of course the shops have to get it first to then turn it around and send to you. So I just want to clarify that if you pre-order from a shop, no matter where it is, in the world, a pre-order is really just guaranteeing that you're on that list and you're going to get it when it actually finally arrives to the shop, and then they turn around and send it out. All right. Okay, so that is just a little bit of clarification. Again, Candy Cane Lane coming out in just a couple more weeks. So excited. But shipping is starting now to shops from us, and shipping is going to continue from the fabric manufacturer over the next couple of weeks to shops, and then it's all going in your hands. So pretty exciting stuff. All right, enough about Candy Cane Lane. Let's get to Halloween, shall we? Home is where the haunt is. Now, Monday, I gave you the assignment. How many of you did it? Okay, let me know in the comments if you were able to complete the first 3 blocks of Home is Where the Haunt Is. One of them was this cute little haunted house that actually said Home is Where the Haunt Is, right? And I showed you how to do the background quilting with if you have a larger size hoop, you could do it just on its own. Or if you did not have a large enough size hoop, I showed you how to use clear blue tiles to be able to get the same look. So that was one of the blocks. One of the blocks was the witch hat, and this particular one was done on velveteen, but we know a lot of kids are out there too that they just used a solid orange fabric, and that looks just as cute. So whether you mixed up the fabrics or not, this is what the Halloween or the witch hat block looked like. And then finally, you should have also finished your pumpkin row, So I want to show you real quick, just a little mini tutorial on how we use the orange pop rulers to cut this block. Okay, so for example, let's go back to this Halloween block or the witch hat block. They're all Halloween blocks. We're going to go to the witch hat block, and it says to cut this to an 8.5 by 8.5 inch size. Well, it makes it really simple to do if you've got an orange pop ruler that's 8.5 by 8.5. And that's what we love about our orange pop rulers. Let's go ahead and go to the overhead cam here. We can place that block on there. Now, I've already cut this to size, so it was actually larger. And then I just placed this on there. And then I could visually see, move this around if this was a bigger fabric, right? I could visually see, okay, that is centered. That looks good. And I would start cutting my edges, all right? And I highly recommend, cannot recommend it enough, a rotating mat when you do this. A rotating mat, my friends, will make all the difference when you are using Kimberbell's orange pop rulers, all right? So make sure you're using one of those. So I have already cut that block. So I'm going to set that aside. But what I want to show you is actually something that is described on page 18 of your instructions. If you will go to page 18, look at the very bottom where it says trimming instructions. This is done a little differently, okay? This one, and let's go ahead and change the lighting on that a little bit. Oh, there we go. That's a little better. It's a little blown out up here. Okay, so this one is done a little differently because as you can see, instead of using one orange pop ruler, like I did with the witch hat, I'm actually going to use a combination of two. It really is simple. You've got the photo instruction there in front of you, but I also want to show you on video how easy that is to do. Before I do that, let me point out one more thing. Do you see this purple line out here? This was our basting stitch, right? And some people will look at that and think, oh, that must be the cutting line. Please don't confuse the basting stitch with the cutting line, because although it may be close to the size that you want, you don't want to use that as your cutting line, because once you do the quilting and the applique, the process of adding that applique especially onto this block really shrinks in the size of that block. So what once started out as that perfect size block that you wanted it to finish at might be a little bit shrunk in because we've added applique to it, and it just, that process pulls it in. That's the beauty of using orange pop rulers to cut your blocks after you have stitched it, because now we can get the correct size we need. So I just want to demonstrate real quick what I mean, because this block, if I were to measure this right now and think, oh, I'll just use that outside line as my cutting line, this is supposed to be 8.5 inches wide. In reality, when I look at this block, it is about 1/8 of an inch off. Okay, it doesn't quite go to 8.5 inches. Same with this direction. If I were to measure this, in reality, what it's supposed to measure is 4.5 inches. Well, after I did that quilting on there, it actually shrunk down again about 1/8 of an inch. Now you might be thinking, let's go ahead and go to this camera. You might be thinking to yourself, okay, 1/8 of an inch, no big deal. Well, it kind of is once you start sewing those blocks together, because as you can imagine, 1/8 of an inch plus 1/8 of an inch and plus 1/8 of an inch, and you start putting all these pieces together, it is going to be off. So that is why we recommend, whether you use the orange pop rulers to cut it at the exact size you need, or you truly measure your block after it's been quilted and appliqued, please do that. Don't necessarily use this basting stitch as your cut line. Okay. All right. So all that being said, let's go ahead and go back to the bottom of page 18. It has us nestle two rulers together. It actually has you put down your 6.5 by 8.5 inch ruler. Okay. And it has you put down the 4.5 by 6.5. This is just one more way of showing you how versatile these rulers are. It's just awesome. Okay. All right. So I'm taking a look here, and I've got them all nestled. I've got them centered. And as you look at step 2 at the bottom of page 18, it has you cut only 2 sides. What sides are they? It's the ones marked in blue. It's the top and the bottom. It is the 4.5 inches right here. Okay. So what I like to do when I use orange pop rulers is, one, of course, have that cutting mat or rotating mat. All right. And then second, I actually like to stand up so that I can give myself more pressure on there. If I'm trying to do this sitting down like this, I don't have the pressure on the blade that I want. Okay. The other thing I'm going to do is notice these corner channels. Do you see how, let's see. I think we can, yeah, there we go. See these corner channels here? That is where you are placing your rotary cutter. So you're placing it in that channel. They extend beyond the block size so that you can get that that rotary cutter started, and then you just cut along the side. Okay, so let's go back to the overhead camera. Now, the other thing I want to mention is that, okay, this is, remember, I'm only cut because of this block that it's a little different than the others. Most of the time, you'll just use one orange pop ruler, but this one we're going to use the combination of 2. to get the different sizes. So this is, I'm going to cut along the top and the bottom. So I want to rotate my mat so that I am looking at just the bottom, okay? And if you are a right-handed person, you're going to cut against the left edge. Your blade is right up, butting up against that edge. If you are a left-handed person, your blade cuts up right against the right inside edge. So that's another difference there. All right, because we're not used to cutting on the inside necessarily, right? Why would I not cut all this on all four sides? Because look, that pumpkin is underneath where that would cut, and would cut it right off. So you only want to do the top and the bottom. So let's go ahead, placing my blade in there, and just nice and slow. And now I'm going to turn it all the way around to get to the top edge. There we go. All right, now look at page. Let me turn my page here to page 19. Look at step 3. It has you actually removing the ruler, the inside ruler. And now you've got the outer edges that you're cutting. Whoop, I shifted that. The outer edges. This is going to give you the length that you need this way, okay? So, and as you can see, my purple stitching, if I would have cut on that line, my block would be too short. So I'm going to use the orange pop ruler to nice and slow cut this on both sides. Okay, the right and the left side. All right. Now, normally, if I was just using a single ruler, let's look back at this real quick. If I had just cut this out and used the single ruler to just go around all four sides, I'd be done. But this one, we have to extend the cut just a little bit longer. I'm going to remove this hoop, and I can remove my sides, but see how it didn't cut all the way because I had the ruler in its place. So now I can just cut off the remaining. I will just extend my cut on on the top and the bottom. Once again, if you were doing this with just a regular block, and it will outline this in your instructions, you wouldn't have to do this extra step. This is just when we're nestling the two to get just the right size we need. All right, so there you have it. Now you have the perfect size, and as it says in step 6, you should have a 4.5 by 8.5 inch block. Isn't that fantastic? All right, now if you're thinking, oh, here we go, 4.5 by 8.5. And you go, oh, but look, I still see some stitching in there. Not a problem, because that is actually going to be sewn into your seam. So it's going to be perfect. All right, so that's just a little tutorial on using orange pop rulers. How many of you have orange pop rulers and have been using them? Let us know in the comments if that's something you've been using. They're super simple to do and makes life a whole lot easier. No measuring, no guessing. You'll always know before you trim that you've got it just in the right place. All right, next, let's talk about those beautiful pieced blocks. This one, this is called Square in a Square, and it's the one that you're going to find right here. And you're going to find it in the top corner as well, right up here. This is the exact same block, just done 2 times, okay? Now, let's look at page 23, and I want you to get out a pen or a pencil because I'm going to have you write a couple of notes on this if you are doing this with the quilting, the background quilting method, because there's a little change that's going to happen when you go to do this block. Now, if you've ever used any of the Kimberbell quilting machine embroider by number projects, you're going to get the idea of how this is done, and you won't believe how not only easy as it is to do, but also how accurate and precise your points will be. I could have never, let's just be honest here. I could have never, let's go ahead and go to this close-up camera here. This is the next one. Yeah, here we go. I could have never gotten those points as crisp and precise as I on my sewing machine. I just, as much as I try to get that 1/4 inch just perfectly. I just sometimes can't do it most of the time. Can you relate to that? And can anyone else relate to that? Perfect points is not my forte, but it sure looks like they are when I do it on my embroidery machine, and it really is simple. So hopefully you have already pre-cut your blocks. We're doing square in a square. Now, according to the directions in step on page 23, we laid these instructions out as if you weren't doing any quilting in the hoop. Okay, this is for if you were just doing all your blocks as is on top of the stabilizer, then you had sewn them together and then you quilted afterwards. Okay, because we know not everybody wants to do quilting in the hoop. But if you're one of those that go, oh, no, I want to quilt as I go and not have to do it later, let me show you how easy it is with the Kimberbell quilting files and just a little change in one of the steps that you're going to find here. So that's why I say get out your pen, because I want you to take a couple of notes. So we are looking at page 23. Let me bring this up here. And again, as you can see there, it has you hoop your light mesh cutaway stabilizer. So yep, go ahead and do that. And load your file onto your machine. And the first step is saying that you want to stitch the piecing template directly on top of your stabilizer. Well, yeah, absolutely, if you aren't quilting in the hoop. But if you're quilting in the hoop, this is what I want you to write down. Okay. I'm going to actually take this to my machine, but I am going to stop the machine after it does the outer square. Okay, so you're going to notice that there's you've got 2 outer squares, and after it does the outer square, that is when you're going to stop the machine before it does anything else, because that's when you're going to place your batting down. Okay. So let's go ahead and go to that point. Watch carefully of when I stop. Okay, it's starting to stitch the square across the top. Then it's going to go to the bottom. Now it's going across the bottom. And then it's going to go up to its starting point again. When it gets there, it's going to do a little tie off. I'm going to hit stop. Okay. Normally, if you didn't hit that stop button, it's going to, continue on with the rest of the piecing. But I want it to stop because I'm going to lift my presser foot up. I'm going to take my batting now, and I want to make sure that it is larger than this first box. Okay. Now, in our instructions for quilting in the hoop, we call this the block by block method. And it says to do about 1/2 of an inch or larger piece of batting that's larger than this square. Well, I just made it larger. I didn't do any measuring because we're going to cut it down to size. I think it's about a 5.5 by 5.5 inch square of batting that I did. But again, not important. It just has to be larger. In fact, let me take this off the hoop here so you can see it better this way. Let's go ahead and go to the overhead camera. So this is my square. I stopped my machine, right? When it did that, it was about to start doing the rest of the stitching. I stopped it. I'm going to place my batting that's larger than that square on top. Okay. I'm going to use just a couple of pieces of our tape, Kimberbell paper tape, just to make sure that that batting doesn't shift anywhere. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to take it to my machine and stitch the rest of that outline, or what we call the piecing template. and it's going to be super fast. Almost done. All right, see how easy that was? I'm going to go ahead and remove that, and let's go ahead and go to the overhead camera. There we go. See that piecing template? Ah, it's perfect. So will your fabric. It's going to be perfect there. This is where I want you to take note in your instructions. Right now, you are going to trim away that excess batting. Why? Because we don't want the fabric, or we don't want the batting inside your seam. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take out some scissors here and just trim that up. All right, there you go. Let's take a look at that. It is all trimmed up. Do you see this outer square here? That's where your seam is. So now, isn't that great? You don't have batting in your seam. Fantastic. All right, let's go ahead and go to the front camera. Just as a way of reminder, here are the notes you're going to take on your instructions. First, if you are going to quilt this in the hoop, then you want to hoop your stabilizer like normal, load your background or load your piecing template, right? And then you're going to stop the machine after that first outer square. Stop it, lay your batting down, continue the process of doing step 1, which is the piecing template. Now that one says in here directly on the stabilizer, but really now it's directly on the batting because you're quilting in the hoop. Okay. Now between the pictures 1 and 2, here, let's see if you can even see my notes here. Between pictures 1 and 2, I put a little arrow to remind me to remove my hoop and trim the batting. That's right there. You can see it. And then continue the process. Okay. So once you've done this, we're going to continue this process. And then afterwards, we're going to load the background quilting design. And now it's going to quilt right on top of that pieced block. Ah, love it. All right. Let's go ahead and go back to the machine. Let's look at step 2 in your instructions, and it says to place that center square. It's purple in our case, and we're going to place that with the right side facing up. There we go. Oh, right. We're transitioning. Ooh, it's like a ghost. The right side of the fabric is facing up. Okay, and I'm going to place it over that center square. I'm going to place it right over the top of this. Okay, don't line anything up. It is an oversized piece. That's exactly what you want. And then it's going to stitch step 2 on your machine with the placement, what we call the trimming and placement outline. All right, easy enough, right? You've got your trimming and placement outline. Let's go ahead and go to this up close one. There we go. I did this in orange so that you could see it a little bit better. It really doesn't matter what color thread you're using at this point because none of this will be seen in the project. So it did this stitch here. What you want to cut away is all of this extra fabric that's right across the top of that stitch. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the overhead. Just trim that up right up next to that stitch line. Easy enough, right? Let's take a look at this camera. There we go. See, this was once there on the top. I just trimmed it away. The next step, as you see in step 5 of your instructions, is to take your green piece of fabric, and let's go ahead and go to this one. And you're going to place this now right side facing down on top. You're going to line it up right along with that stitch line that had just been cut up against, right? And you are just going to center it along that line that was stitched, right up against the top of that fabric that you just cut. Again, the right side is facing down. And that just makes sense, doesn't it? Because when we sew seams together, we will place right sides together. Well, now your right side's together. And what's going to happen is that the machine will now stitch the perfect 1/4 inch stitch across that fabric. Then we'll flip it up and then move on to the next step. So let's go ahead, place that back on our machine and stitch that seam line. All right, now this is where I get so giddy about stuff like this because that, my friends, is the perfect 1/4 inch. Can we get a little closer on that? Yeah, look at that. Oh my gosh, I couldn't have done that perfectly on there, but the machine can. And I want to flip it up and press it. Now on step 7 of your instructions, it will actually show an iron there. It says flip and press right side up. Yes, you could do an iron there, or and if you do, I should say, take it off the bed of your machine and iron it on a little ironing board. Some of you might have like those little mini irons. That would be perfect for this too. But another idea is I use something called a fabric folding pin, and this is amazing. You'll want like 10 of them in your house because you don't want to go without it. And fabric stores carry this, quilt shops carry this. I think it's made by Clover, and I love it. So what it does, it has this liquid starch solution inside it, and I can just, let's go ahead to the overhead camera. What I do is I just run this pin, see it's got the brush pin on the top. I just run it right along my seam line. It just lets out a little bit of liquid, enough for me to then only have to finger press that. Isn't that great? And I never had to take it to an ironing board. So this is a tip that you could do actually directly on your machine. You wouldn't have to take it out every single step. You could just put that liquid starch right against the seam, right along the seam line, flip it up and finger press. It's just awesome. Okay, so now we're looking at instruction step number 8 in your pattern, which is machine step number 4. So let's go ahead and put this on. It's going to stitch a vertical trimming and placement line. And what you want to do next, of course, is cut away the fabric that goes beyond that stitch line. Let me show you. Right here. Okay, there we go. All right, maybe I should have used a white thread. That could have been maybe a little easier to see. All right. So see, this is the stitch line that went down. And now I want to trim away this extra part right up against that stitch. So I will go ahead and do that. All right. Now let's look at step 10 in your instructions. It says to take the next piece, there we go, next green piece, and I'm going to place it, again, right side facing down, right along that seam, that stitch that I just barely stitched, and just kind of center it along that line. What that means is I'm not going to put it up here, right? I'm not putting it up here. I'm not putting it down here. I'm looking at exactly that area that was stitched, and I'm just going to center this oversized piece a little bit here, right up against that stitch line. Now when I put it back on the machine, it's going to stitch the perfect 1/4 inch. All right. Now, if you don't have an embroidery machine and you're watching this and you're pretty wowed by this technique, you might want one. Because I know there's many people that will say, well, I like to quilt, so I'm not a machine embroiderer. But oh my goodness, you are quilting in the hoop and you get the perfect points every time. I love it. All right, you know the drill. I'm going to take this pin and I'm just going to run it right along that seam stitch, the perfect 1/4 inch seam stitch, right? This does not, stain your fabric. It will dry fairly quickly. There won't be any problem at all. And then on a flat surface, you're just going to want to finger press that down. All right, we're ready for our next step. Let's take a look at, let's see, we're on page 24, step 13. This is going to do that stitch across the bottom. Now, if you're able to, some blocks will be easier to do than others, but I can just kind of remove this a little bit and pull it out this way and then just cut while it's still on top of my machine. I wouldn't have to take it every time over to my table. All right, so I cut away the extra. So now I'm going to place another piece of green fabric, right side facing down, right along that bottom stitch line that I just cut up against. I'm going to center it right there and do my next stitch, which is a 1/4 inch. All right. I'm going to show you that even on the machine, I can just use my fabric folding pin right from here. Just run it along that seam and flip my fabric. Okay. Now let's do that final one on the left side. Okay, this one might be a little harder to reach into, so I'm going to actually place it on my table and trim the extra fabric away. Are there any questions as I'm doing this? Questions or comments about piecing in the hoop? I'm going to lay my next piece of fabric here. I just cut up against this stitch line. I'm placing my right side down, just centering it along there, and now I'm going to do my next 1/4 inch. Okay, let me know if you've got any questions. I can't see the comments very well from where I'm at, so I'm going to have Brielle or Andrew let me know.
People would ask what size you were using and what project you're working on. Some people join us a little bit bigger.
Okay, so I'm using the 5x7 hoop, and I am working on the square in a square block, which is on the Home is Where the Haunt Is pillow. Let's see, right here. if you joined us late, this is what I am working on right there, that block. And there's a second identical block just like it right there. Okay. All right. And what I'm showing is how to piece a quilt block in the hoop, which is so awesome. All right. Well, we've now got a square, folks. But we're not done yet. The next step is actually going to do those outer triangles. And this is where you're going to see the beauty of piecing in the hoop come to life, because this is going to be perfect on each of those corners. And I'll tell you, as hard as I try, I can never get perfect points on my own. But with an embroidery machine, I can. All right, I want you to notice something here. Notice, let's go ahead and go to the next camera. Notice that I've got this going at an angle. This is my next stitch line. What that means is, of course, I'm going to trim up the fabric that goes beyond it. And you might be looking at it going, but wait a minute, Kim, that stitch line isn't right next to that corner. Well, let's think about this for a minute. What's going to happen? I'm going to lay my fabric down right up against that stitch line. It's going to stitch a 1/4 inch in, and voila, never fear, it's going to go right up next to that corner, making the absolute perfect point. Ah, love it. All right, so let me go ahead and trim up this real quick. Ooh, here's another thing I want to point out, because some may wonder. Do you see this little notch right here? And how when I did this, when I cut across at an angle, there was a little bump right there because the stitch lines from previous ones go there. Not a problem. Just go ahead and just cut around it and continue the line, because that is going to be sewn into the seam. So no worries there. All right. Okay. Now I'm going to take my next blocks. It's the cute black and white plaid there on an angle. Love it. And I'm going to place right side down. Let's go ahead and go to the top camera. All right. So this was the line that was stitched. I cut off the extra fabric that was over here. Now I'm going to take this fabric, place it right side down, and I'm centering it along the line that was stitched. Again, that means I'm not going to go over here, and I'm not going to go over here. I'm not trying to line anything up. I'm just looking at the line that I just stitched and just centering it right along there. Okay. Now take it back to the machine, and it's going to stitch that 1/4 inch. Any questions?
Does this work with the flying geese blocks in the candy corn quilt shop?
I am so glad you asked. The question was, does this work with the flying geese blocks in the candy corn quilt shop? And the answer is yes. Yes, it does. All right. Same technique. Just take it step by step. Our product development team has made it really easy for you to visually see what's happening with every single picture that is in front of you. So if you will refer back to this tutorial, and you can see it through video, when you go to see it in the pictures as well, and you're going, oh, okay, I see what's going on. It's really, really simple. Oh my gosh. Okay. I wasn't going to show you this yet, but I have to show you. Look at this. Look at this. Let me get something to point it out. I'm so excited. It did that 1/4 inch. See, I flipped, it was down like this. I flipped it over. Perfect point, my friends. You cannot get any more perfect. It's right there. So awesome. All right, so now I'm going to stitch the next angle and cut away the extra. There we go. Okay, now can all blocks be pieced in the hoop? Not necessarily, but if they can, we do it. And there are a lot of possibilities with them. We've got so many fun things in store for you on this. Okay, so I'm going to trim away. This was at an angle. I'm going to trim away the excess. Again, if there's a little bump in the road, I like to call it, like you see here. See how I had to cut around? I was cutting along, singing a song, and then whoop, there's a bump. That's because that's where your fabric met and the stitches extend beyond there. Not a problem. It's going to be sewn into the seam. So then you just continue cutting the rest of it off. Now I'm going to place my next piece of fabric right side down and stitch. Okay. Oh, there we go. See that? All right, we are almost done. And then I'll show you how to quilt it in the hoop. All right. You're piecing in the hoop, you're quilting in the hoop, you're having so much fun because your blocks and points are perfect. It's just awesome. All right, I'm going to quickly run this fabric folding pin across here and flip it over. Let's go ahead and do our next angle. Okay. And trim it up. Move my seat here for you. There we go. Oh, bump in the road. Not a big deal. It's going to be sewn in the seam. Just keep cutting. All right. Now, next piece. Guys, we only have 2 more pieces left. See how simple that was? I'm going to line it up. Right sides together. Centered along that line that was stitched. And put it back on my machine. Okay, I'm just going to run my pin across there. If you don't have one of these, taking it to an ironing board will also be just fine. And with a little mini iron, just press that open. You could also use, I can't remember the name of it. It's those little rollers. Do you know what I'm talking about? You could certainly finger press it and then use a roller to roll out the seam, press the seam. That's also possible. All right, we're on our last block before quilting. All right, let's go ahead and go to the overhead. And I'm going to cut off this extra right here. Bump in the road, no big deal. We're just going to keep cutting. If you just join me, what I mean by bump in the road is this. If you start cutting along that seam that you just stitched, and you go, it's stuck. There's a stitch there. There's some fabric that crossed. That's because that's where the fabric crossed before, and your stitches are under there. No big deal. Just cut around, back down, and keep going down that road, right? And then that will be sewn into your seam. All right. So, are you ready for the last stitch? Right sides together. You got this now, right? This technique, the exact same technique, is used with that flying geese block. It is awesome. All right. Are you ready to see this come to life? Let's go ahead and go to the overhead. I have just stitched my final seam. I'm going to take this pin or an iron or a roller. Lots of ways to do anything, right? Flip it and just give it a good little finger press. Is that perfect or what? But we are not quite done yet, my friends. Look at step 43 in your instructions. The next step, because this doesn't quite look like a block yet, it will very soon, is to do the trimming line, stitch the trimming line. So let's do that first, and then I'm going to show you how to quilt it. All right. So I have just stitched what would be considered my cutting line, my trimming line. Okay. You are good to go with this. Again, this was digitized as if you weren't doing any quilting, right? But because you're quilting it, we can still at this point add the quilting instruction or quilting designs on top of there. And I've got a few extra notes that I want you to take too. So let's go ahead and go to this camera. If you will turn with me to page 4 in your instructions, you will see the Quilting Designs Guide. Again, this only applies to those people that are quilting it as you go. These designs are sold separately and they are found at kimberbell.com. In fact, I know a lot of you have these quilting designs. You may not even need to buy another one because you already have created your own library of quilting designs. And that's what we love about this. They can be used for anything. And if you look at this block and you're like, I'm not sure I want to do the same quilting design that Kimber Bell did in their pillow, no problem. You've got so many more blocks at kimberbell.com to choose from. But if we look at section 1 in your instructions, if we go to the top there, let's see. Right here, I'm looking at my square and a square block and it says number 1. So I'm going to go down here to this list and it says square and a square. You're going to use KDQ021-wavy-2. And then you're going to use 4x4 horizontal. Okay. We use the same exact quilting design for the other square and a square block that you see right here at number 8. So you can change them up or you can keep them the same. It's totally up to you. Now it says 4x4 horizontal. Well, with our direction blocks that are on orange fabric, you can do horizontal or vertical. It's just absolutely up to you, right? So I'm going to go ahead. I didn't pop this out of the hoop yet. I'm not cutting anything yet. I still need to quilt this. So I'm going to go to my machine and I'm going to find that 4x4 design. Okay. Right here. That's the one I want. Okay. And then I'm going to hit embroidery. And now it shows me 5 steps. I don't know if you can see this on the camera or not, but if you were at home and doing this, a lot of times your steps numbers will show up right here on your screen. And it shows that there are 5 steps. Well, let me talk about that for a minute. The reason why there are 5 steps on this block is because this is what we would call the block by block method, which means that this is designed so that there's no batting inside those seams, right? So it goes through a series of steps where it's taking the batting out of the seams. You're doing the batting placement line, then you place your batting, then you do the batting tack down line, and then you trim, right? We've already done that. Remember? We already did that at the beginning of this piece block. So what we can actually do at this point is skip the first 4 steps. We've already done it. Skip to step number 5 on your machine and let it just do its quilting design. All right? So let's go ahead, and I'm just going to skip ahead to, I've got number 2 on here, number 3 on here, number 4 on here, and now number 5 is when the quilting shows up, and that is where I want to quilt. Now, at this point, what thread color you use, well, that's up to you. In our instructions or on our sample pillow, our testing team put together white thread on there. They wanted it to see pop off of that purple, so they used white. When I did my sample block at home, this one, let's go ahead and see if we can get a close-up. This one, I actually used purple thread. We'll get that here in just a minute. There we go. So I used a light purple to do that because I wanted to see it on all the blocks, even on these outer blocks. So you can see my purple stitching there. This one, because I have orange thread already in the machine, and why not? I mean, orange will still be cute. I'm just going to keep it to orange. So let's go ahead and watch it quilt. All right. Woo! We did it, guys. Any questions I can help answer before we move on to the next block?
Could you quilt it and then do the cutting line?
Yes. Okay, the question was, do you quilt it and then do the cutting line? Well, or are you saying the trimming line? I think you probably mean trimming line. Yes, you want to stitch the trimming line first, then quilt it. Quilting it is going to be the very last step. All right. And doing that trimming line first, this is in step 43, where you did the trimming line. In fact, let's get an up close of my notes here, right? This is exactly what I wrote in my book on my printout. Is I was at step 43. Okay. I was at step 43, and I went ahead and I stitched the trimming line, which is the step there. But then I said, now add the quilting. I said, no need for batting placement lines, because those are the first 4 steps. So you can skip right to step 5. I even circled it. Skip to step 5. There we go. So then after that's done, that's when you would remove it from the hoop. It's going to be done here any second now. Ooh, I like the orange on there. You're going to see it really well. And then use those trimming lines to cut that block. All right.
Before we move on, could you also explain what the fabric folding pin is one more time?
Yeah, you bet. Let me show you real quick this block, finished block, and then I'll explain the fabric folding pin. Do you see the orange quilt lines on there? Ooh, I like it. Yeah, it's like this wavy kind of crosshatch looking. It almost looks spooky, right? In this case, I've used this on I use this on a Valentine quilt. I've used the same design on other projects, and it just kind of takes on a life of its own depending on the mood you're going after. And then in this Halloween one, it definitely works. All right, so I did that in orange. At this point, let's go ahead and go to the close-up again. You did a trimming line, so you can cut that now at 4.5 by 4.5. Now we can use that line because this was something that was not heavily stitched on, should I say. We didn't have extra applique on it, so it'll be just fine using that cutting line. All right. If you want to be extra sure, well, absolutely grab an orange pop ruler. Let me go ahead and take one here. I've got my 4.5 by 4.5. I could just center that right on there. There we go. And then cut out that block to be exactly the 4.5 by 4.5 inch I need. And voila, there you go. You need to make 2 of these. So don't forget that. And to answer that previous question, this was a question about the fabric folding pin. Let me show you an up close of this. This is a tool produced by the company called Clover, and I swear by it. There's any quilt shop out there, online or brick and mortar store, they'll have these. I'm certain of it. They're such a great tool. And what it does, it has in this little capsule, right, a water/starch solution that comes with a pin as well. You just fill it up with a little bit of the starch solution, and then you add your own water. The directions will tell you how. And then don't put your whole thing, don't fill your whole thing with starch. That no bueno. You just want a little bit of starch solution and then fill the rest up with water. And then I just use the tip of this pin to run it across my seam line. And then I just press it open, finger press it open, and we're good to go. Again, you could, if you don't have one of those, no big deal. You could use an iron. Just make sure you take your project off the hoop, put it on an ironing board, and give it a little press. Okay. All right. Great question. Any other questions before we move on?
There were a couple more. Let me just come back and find them. Do you need to check the positioning of the quilting pattern before hitting go?
Do you say that one more time?
Do you need to check the positioning of the quilting pattern before hitting go?
That's a good question. And they can hear you, right? On the mic? Okay. No, because you are using, this is a 4x4 block. It ends up being a 4x4 block. All you do is pull up the 4x4 quilting design. And unless you shifted something out of your hoop, yeah, it's going to line up perfectly in the center and start from there and then quilt your project. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about this next piece block. We're not going to do it because it's the exact same technique. But just know look at those cute flying geese there. Right, right there. Oh, the flying geese, and they're going up and down and up and down. Oh, that is fun. Our digitizer, I think Jeanette came up with that block. I think it's super cute. And so we did the exact same thing. Everything that I did in that square and a square, that's the technique you're still going to use for this one. So if you will turn to page 26, you will find the step-by-step instructions for that. It's no different. Just one moment. Bria, would you mind? I think that's an important call. So I'm going to have you check it out. And the answer is probably yes. All right. So let's go. This is live, you know. Let's go ahead and go to, let me give you a tip for the broom block. All right. What some of you might think, well, how do I do the broom block if there's a broom on top of it, right? And I don't want it to quilt over my stitching. So what you're going to do, go ahead and have them call Ryan. All right. So what you're going to do, sorry about that. It's kind of an important call and I just want to make sure he gets it. So you're going to do the same kind of thing where after you've pieced the block, okay, you are actually going to, you're going to stop your machine. Well, let me back up. This is the block I'm talking about, right there. And what this block does, there we go. This is another 4x4 block. This is all backwards on me, so I got to figure this out. There we go. There's the 4x4 block. This is all pieced in the hoop, right? This is pieced and this is pieced. It's all part of the same piecing, right? But then you have this cute chenille that is on top of it. So here's what I want you to think about. Think about what we just did with the square in a square block. First, we did our outer line, right? And we stopped our machine. Then we placed our batting in there and we did the rest of the piecing, okay? So I want you to do that. I want you to stop your machine after you stop your machine after the outer square. Place your batting. Then do your piecing template, right? Which you'll see on page 31. Let me show you here what I'm referring to. You will stitch the piecing template on top of the batting now, okay? Not on top of the stabilizer if you're quilting. Then you will go ahead and go through all these instructions of piecing. I even have some more notes here for you to see. You're going to go through all the way to step 27, where you flipped and pieced that right side of fabric up. Okay, you haven't added the broom yet. See, it's not there. Then you stitch the trimming line, just like we did with that square in a square block. But this is where, see my notes? You stop the machine and you load your quilting file, and then you stitch your quilting. All right? So the broom has not been stitched yet. You have only pieced the background. You stop your machine, you add your quilting file, then you stitch your quilting. All right? After you've done your quilting, go back to that broom step. Okay? So if you can do this, if this is something that you have software and you can combine designs, great. You could do it in software. But I want to tell you that it's still possible to do this, even if you don't have software. I don't want you to worry and think, I can't do that. No, you can do that. You just bring up the file again that has the broom, skip to the broom step, and then stitch your broom, and you're done. All right? So that, again, those are tips for doing this block. Once again, you've got, these are all pieced in the hoop along with this long strip and along with this background purple block. Pretend like this broom doesn't even exist right now. You do this exactly the same way as I showed you with the square in a square block, okay? But then after your quilting is done, go back and find that step that did the broom, and that's when you can do the broom. All right, hopefully that helps. I'm looking to see if there's any questions. All right, someone asked, what type of batting am I using? That's a great question. I wish I had some here. It is the Kimberbell Project batting. It is something that we use for all of our bench pillows, our quilts, our table toppers, all of it, because it is the perfect loft. If you have ever been to a Kimberbell event, this is the exact same batting that is in our event kits, and people love it. It's not too thick, it's not too thin, it's just right, is what I like to say, and we use it in this project as well, okay? It's the Kimberbell Project batting. All right, so that is piecing, piecing and quilting in the hoop. Let me grab my hoop. We are now, yeah, you know, it's life. It happens. If you saw me earlier today, you saw that my earbuds dropped out of my ears and I had to crawl on my floor and get them. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is the cute mummy block. Well, I hesitate to even show you this right now because it's not done yet. Let's take a look. You're like, Kim, that's not so cute. Right? Yeah, it's kind of ugly. Well, what I like to say is trust the process, my friends. Trust the process because it's not done yet. It will get there. I'm just going to show you how I cut that up in a minute. This is how cute it is. Now, let's take a look at that one. That's a little better. Ah, there we go. That's how this will end up. But let's talk about how we do it. All right, well, we need some stabilizer. And I'm not sure if I did bring it. Good. No, maybe not. Oh, here it is. Okay. We use, let me find it in our instructions where we are at. Where is that, Mummy? Page 21. Page 21 is what we are doing. All right, so I'm going to use my 5x7 hoop, and I am using a light mesh cutaway stabilizer. Okay. From the Kimberbell stabilizer line. And I am just going to hoop this. Now, again, if you are not quilting in the hoop, no problem. Just follow the instructions as outlined in your download. But I want to show you how I did this with quilting in the hoop first. All right, so I've got my light mesh cutaway stabilizer, and I've also got all my fabrics pre-cut, ready to go. And I've got my batting because I am quilting as I go, right? And I've got my background fabric. Again, if you weren't with me on Monday, you know that we like to back up all of our background blocks with the Kimberbell fusible backing. That's going to add a whole lot more structure. It's going to reduce puckering. It's awesome stuff. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is actually turn to page 4 again, because I want to show you how I first quilted this block and then added my mummy on top of the quilted block. All right, so if we turn to page 4 and we look at step 7, let's see, not step 7, block number 7. That's up here in the kind of the right corner. It's the mummy block number 7. I'm going to go down here. And that says it's the mummy KDQ014 Halloween 2. And oh, that's a cute design. I know what that is. And you want to download the 4x4. Again, this is a separate purchase, only if you want to do quilting in your hoop. And you can find those at kimberbell.com. Quilting backgrounds. All right, so this is my 4x4 design. I am using the not the clear blue tiles, sorry, the block by block method. There are 2 different types of quilting that we like to do here at Kimberbell. Some are called the block by block method, which works really well for things like this, where you're doing like small blocks and then sewing it all together at the end. And then others files are called clear blue tiles files, and that's for like all over quilting, like with a quilt sandwich. Okay. This is the block by block that I'm going to show you because I don't want the batting in the seams. All right. So I pulled up the 4x4 under the file that said block by block. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and place this on my machine and do the first step, which is the batting placement line. This is all outlined in your download that comes with the quilting files, with pictures and all. Okay, so all I did was stitch a square ground. It's my placement line for my batting, and I'm going to lay my batting. It's oversized piece. The directions will also tell you in the quilting download file how big you can cut it. You just want to make sure that it's bigger than that background piece. All right. This is the batting tack down line. At this point, it's going to go around twice because we don't want it to lift up when we cut around it. Just provide some extra security there. Okay, so now I'm going to cut away this extra batting around all 4 edges. I am using, if you're not familiar with our Kimberbell scissor and tool set, it comes in a beautiful case like this. And I am using the duckbill scissors from this case. Okay. All right. I'm going to place it back on the machine, and the next step is going to stitch an outer line where we would call that like the fabric, the background fabric placement line. And we'll sew that next. And then we know where to place our fabric. It will be a 1/4 inch larger on all 4 sides of that batting. Okay, so now it has stitched about a 1/4 inch outside of that box on all 4 sides. I'm going to take my fabric, my background fabric, with the right side facing up, and just make sure the whole area is covered. And now it will do my fabric tack down line. All right, this tack down line becomes just a basting stitch just to hold that fabric in place. It will be sewn into your seam, so you know you can either remove it or not even worry about it later because it will be inside that seam. Now, my favorite part, you know what it is, it's the quilting, and I'm going to keep this with orange just so that we can see it. All right, let's go ahead and go to the main camera. What other questions can I help answer while this is stitching out? Any questions? I know Brielle is answering a lot of them in the chat, so thank you, Brielle, for that. Darlene says she just purchased the Halloween background quilting bundle. That's fantastic, Darlene. You're going to really enjoy that. What I love about that bundle is that it is the same quilting files that we used on Candy Corn Quilt Shop, as well as Home is Where the Haunt Is, and can be used for any types of Halloween designs, right? There's some everyday designs, if you will, in there as well that you can use for other projects. If you have some of those designs and not others, then my suggestion would be not to buy the bundle, but just to pick and choose the singles that you wanted. And each of those background quilting designs come in, I want to say 14 different sizes. So it's going to work for all of your quilting needs for sure. All right. What other questions?
Are they able to rewatch this video?
Are you able to rewatch this video? Absolutely. Yep. We would love for you to come back and refer to it. You know, in the future, you may be doing another type of quilting, piecing in the hoop or of some sort, or quilting in the hoop, and you're going to go, now what did Kim say about that? Or what was that tip she said? You can always refer back to this. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. There you will get notifications. If you click on, I think it's a little bell there at the YouTube channel. If you'll subscribe to that and the bell, you'll always get notifications when these videos come out. And then they will also always be on Facebook as well. I'm glad it's helpful. Okay. All right. Oh, it's done. See how easy that was? All right. I'm not going to take it out of the hoop yet, because we're going to add our mummy. But look at that quilting. So cute. And all of these designs have been digitized so that it perfectly fills in the block that you're quilting. And notice there is an outer edge that is unquilted. That's by design, because that outer edge actually ends up being inside your seam. So when this is all sewn together, it's going to look as if it filled up your entire block from end to end. It's just awesome. so proud of our team and our digitizers and our testers for making this possible. It's pretty awesome. All right, so now let's talk about that cute mummy. Let's go through a few steps and some helpful tips. I won't go through every single step with you again because time. We know you have other things to do today, maybe some laundry, maybe work, maybe shopping, maybe you're watching this on your lunch hour. Who knows? I won't tell your boss. But let's go ahead. It's quilted. I can now add, or it's still going to stay centered. So now it's time to find my mummy design. Again, if you had embroidery software, you can combine these right from the beginning. Some machines will also have a button on their machine that says add, and you can simply do it there, or you can do it just like I'm doing it here. Did I forget to load that design? You guys, I forgot to load the mummy design. That would just be my luck today, right? I forgot to load the mummy design. Do we have another USB here that has the mummy design on it? If not, I can walk you through some tips. And then, of course, I've got this that will be fun to show you. Don't know where my head was.
Right here.
Oh, do you? Oh, Brielle, to save the day. She's got the design pulled up and she is going to load it for me. So there we go. Lynn says, I'm doing laundry as I watch. I excel at multitasking. I love that, Lynn. Yeah, sometimes we do what we got to do. When I was stitching these blocks at home, I had my machine here and then I had my computer here and I was designing a new Christmas quilt for 2022. So I was doing that while stitching. So I get the whole multitasking. And dinner, what's that? I don't know. All right. Let's see. Any other questions? I got the file, so I can load it now. Thank you, Brielle, for saving the day.
I got you, Kim.
She does. She's always got me. All right.
Kim, there was a question about whether you can use the clear blue tiles quilting backgrounds on this as well. So can you go over that?
Yeah, absolutely. If you'll go to the first video of this, which I did on Monday, it's part 1. Someone asked if you can use the clear blue tiles quilting on it, and I did that actually on this block because I wanted to show you that you needed a larger hoop to be able to do this quilting. We'll get an up close here. There we go. Isn't that cute? And the file that it used, the design, if you were to just do it in one hooping, was oh my goodness, was too big for some people's hoops and couldn't be done in a 5x7. But I want you to know that you could still do it in a 5x7. Isn't that awesome? And we did that with clear blue tiles and this fun Halloween design. So yes, you can use those. All right, but if you don't want the batting to be in your seam, like in these particular blocks, you want to use the block by block method, okay? I should back up and say this. We did use the clear blue tiles method on this, but, and so there was the no batting, there wasn't the placement line for batting. So you would have batting in your seams on this, but all you have to do is just cut. What I would do is fold this back 1/4 inch and then trim up just the batting portion off, and then you'd be good to go. All right. So there's the difference. But with block by block method, it's already done for you. All right. So I pulled up this design, and the first embroidery. There we go. The first step is we're looking at page 21, and I'm going to stitch the face placement line. I'll go back to those little torn strips here in just a minute, but let's get this started with the placement line. One of the things it mentions in step 3, let's go ahead and go to the main camera. In step 3, it says that you need, well, step 2 and 3, it says to mark about every 1/2 inch across this long side and then tear it or cut it a little bit and tear it. And the reason why we tear it is because we want it to look so cool and like mummy-like. If you made a nice clean cut, it's not going to look like a mummy, right? So we're going to tear it. So what I'm going to do, it's really simple. Let's go ahead and go to the overhead. I'm not even going to get out a ruler. Yes, you could get out a ruler, or you can be like Kim and just eyeball it. No big deal. About 1/2 inch is what we're saying. All right. You're going to get approximately 16 out of this length of fabric. But do you see me measuring? Do you see me counting? No. Nobody's got time for that. All right. Okay, so now you've got all these cut pieces that are just about, a little bit in, about 1 inch or so. And then have some fun. Rip in, tear it, ladies and gentlemen. Just pull and tear and pull and tear. And there you go, because we want all these strips to look like it's a wrapped mummy. Are they all going to be the exact width? Probably not. I didn't measure anything. I'm just eyeballing it, and that's okay. Okay, don't use your first end or your last end because it will have a clean edge, and you want the rugged edge on both sides. Let's see if this other camera would see that a little better. Ah, there we go. The torn edge on all sides. Okay, so I just ripped these babies up, put them in a pile, and now I'm ready to use them when needed. Okay, so let's go back to this mummy face. I hesitate to even show you this at this point because it all just looks like a whole bunch of orange lines right now because I haven't bothered to change out my thread. But you can see there that we've got a little parallelogram, kind of, sort of, that is the face. And so I'm going to place my mummy face fabric on top of that. Then I'm going to stitch that face again and cut away the extra stabilizer. Okay. Don't forget your strips. Oh, this is fun. Just have fun with it. Okay. Easy enough. Okay. So you have stitched the tack down line of the face. And now I'm going to trim away all the extra fabric that goes beyond that face. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. All right, done. Easy peasy. Next, I am going to stitch the placement line for the head, which is a nice big oval circle. And when I'm done stitching that, I'm going to lay my next piece of white fabric on top of that. Okay. It's also going to stitch just the placement line of the face again. It's just going to go around that edge, and then it's going to go around in a circle. But you're just going to lay this right on top. All right, so it's stitched an oval. Now I'm going to place this on top. And stitch. Now, one of the tips that we gave, let's go ahead and go to the front, is that you'll see on step 1, we actually had you fuse fusible backing onto the back of the head. You can certainly do that. You can do it on the back of the face. You're not going to see it. you're really not going to see a whole lot of shadowing once we get all of these strips put on. So yeah, that's up to you. Okay. I did not do it, let's just say. That's terrible, Kim. I should have followed directions, but it's okay. All right. Now I want to cut away the extra fabric from a couple of places. Okay. I'm going to cut away the extra fabric that goes beyond that oval. And I'm going to cut away the extra fabric that's inside there. Now that may seem a little tricky to get inside there first. I've got a little tip for you on that. Basically, you want to just take, you know, some tips. I used our little flexible scissors here, and I'm just going to gently lift that up, kind of poke it with one of those tips. You could also do this with like a straight pin, and then just give it a little snip and then cut on the inside. This is one of those examples of when I like to use these flexible snips to cut this small area, because putting a duck bill in there just would not work. But this has a curved bottom edge. They're elongated tips, and makes it really simple. Okay, so I've cut that away. Now I'm going to cut away the extra. I'd probably do the duck bills on this one. Yeah. Okay, again, I'm using orange thread for two reasons. One, it's the thread I have. I did not bring the rest of my threads. So let's just say, Kim, orange is good. It's fine. So it is the thread I have, but you know what? It actually works out good because you'll be able to see it better in the video, right? So I totally had that planned. All right. Whew. We are on step 12. Let's go ahead and go to step 12. And my mummy, instead of having black eyes like it should, it's going to have, you guessed it, orange eyes. It's going to do the eyes next, and mine are nice and orange. You know I like orange. I mean, it's the Kimberbell logo and all, but orange eyes on the mummy, it's all good. All right. Okay. Oh, yeah. He's cute enough with orange eyes. All right. The next step is, it says to stitch the wrap strips A placement lines. So this is, I'm going to take you up through the next couple of steps, and then, well, by the magic of television, I'll take you to this one that's almost done, and we can go from there. So right now, it's just going to stitch a bunch of lines. If you are waiting on a kit from your favorite quilt shop, I know they're working hard. Shops from all over the country are working really hard on getting those out. There was some, if you wanted it to be just like this, there was some fabric that was on back order from the manufacturer. And it's because it sold so well. So I guess that's, you know, it's good and bad, right? So the manufacturer is working as hard as they can to get those fabric, those fabric bolts sent to shops, so that shops can then kit it, so then they can send it to you. It's, you know how this all goes. I know we get tired of hearing the word COVID and it's COVID related, but it truly is all COVID related. Any delays in shipping from a shop is most likely due to shipping behind the scenes as well. There's a lot of it's a domino effect, right? And so I know they're working hard. They are working hard to get those out to you, but several of the fabrics from this particular project were on back order. So yeah, that is what's going on there. Let's see. Heidi says they're glow in the dark eyes. Yes, Heidi, I will take that. They're glow in the dark eyes for sure. Okay, it's going to look a little funky right now, but like I say, trust the process. Trust the Kimberbell process, because there's a rhyme to the reason as to why we do things the way we do, and this is one of them. It looks like just a bunch of lines right now. Here is what you're going to do. Use the strips. I'm going to take one strip at a time, and I'm going to place it directly on top of each of those lines. So as you can see, this is kind of going to go all over the place, right? I'm going to keep it in place for the next stitch out. I'm going to tape it a little bit just on each end outside of this area so that it just stays in place until a tack down line can go smack down the center. Okay, so let me go ahead and do that, and then I'm going to show you how I used our water soluble topping or our iron away topping. That will work just as well, to make sure that your machine does not catch on all these fabric strips. All right, so again, let's go ahead to the over camera real quick so you can see what in the world is Kim doing with these. See, I find a line, I place it just right down the middle of that line. Do not overthink this, my friends. If it does not have to be perfect, because it is a mummy, for heaven's sakes, right? It is a mummy, and it's going to be wrapped all ski-wampus, and that's what you want it to be. So again, I'm just placing, as you can see, tape on the outer edges. All right, I've got one more piece to go. Looks like it's going this way. Now, this is just the first set of strips. It's going to do a second set of strips in a little bit. You'll see how in just a minute. Now, if I were to take this to the machine at this point, let's go ahead and go to this side camera. If I were to take this to the machine, do you see what could possibly happen? You've only got tape laying those strips down on each end, and you don't want tape all over the place, right? So you need a way to make sure that your presser foot on the machine and your needle is not going to get caught on all these crazy strips. So the easiest way to do that is to use one of the Kimberbell toppers. Okay, we have two different kinds. We have a wash away topper and we have an iron away topper. Let's take a look at both of those. You can find those in quilt shops. There we go. And online. There we go. The directions say to use the wash away topper. And you certainly, that's something you can use. You can also really use the iron away topper. You just use them for different reasons. Now at the wash away, you can imagine at the end, you would be washing away that topper, any extra topper. You pull away most of it, but there might be some little itty bits that are still there, and you would just like spritz it with water, or you could, dip it and, or underneath, in a sink or underneath the faucet, and it would wash away. But with an iron, the Kimberbell iron away topper, I actually used this one last night in my sewing room because I was out of my wash away, and that works just as well too. So really it's up to you. And with an iron away, all you do is, again, you pull away most of this plastic topper from it after it stitches, but any pieces that are left, you just take an iron to it and just give it just a gentle little press, and poof, it just disappears. It's crazy. All right, so I just cut a piece of this out. I really don't need that big of a piece, but what this does, it actually covers up all of those pieces, right? So now, excuse me, let me grab some water. All right, whoo! I sound like I'm going through puberty. Let me grab some water. All right. I'm going to place this topper over it. Now, I don't want you to get this confused with wash away stabilizer. Those are two different products. So there's wash away topper and there's wash away stabilizer. This is the topper. It's plasticky. It's a thin plastic. Again, you could use wash away or iron away. It doesn't matter. And then I'm just going to tape at the top and the bottom so it doesn't shift. But look what this does. You can imagine now that that's on, your machine is just going to glide right over those strips and stitch them down. So what's going to happen at this point is that you're going to have a center line go smack down the center of each of those strips. It's not going to get caught and lift up your fabric because you've got the topper on it. So really important step right there. All right. So I'm going to place that back onto my machine and I will lovingly have orange lines on there. If I were doing this for my real one, like I did last night, I would use white thread. But you know, it doesn't matter. It's all part of your own creativity, right? All right. So that's going to do a whole bunch of lines. Let's see. We are on step. Where are we? We did our topping. Oh, there we go. We're on step 7, which is to stitch the tack down lines, or not step 7. That's machine step 7, but in your instructions, it's step 16. Okay. So look at the top of page 22. That is what I am doing right now. Oh, and I'm doing 16 and 17 is what I'm doing. Okay. Once we have a question. Okay.
Yep. For the iron away topper, do you need to place a cloth or parchment between the topper and the iron? Will it goop up the iron?
It does not. I would not press it on there. I would take the tip. Say this is my iron. Oh, we've got an iron right there. I'm going to grab an iron and I'm going to show you. That's a great question. While this is stitching out, I would have it hot. I would have maybe even some steam in it. Steam can help too. And I would just take the tip because, again, you're going to remove most of the stabilizer, topping. You're going to remove most of it after you've stitched. Okay. But any of it that's remaining, then you'll just take like a hot tip of your iron and you just kind of brush it up against it and it just poof, it just disappears. It's awesome. And it does not get on your iron. Don't ask me how. I do not know these things, but it doesn't and it works. It's awesome. All right. So at this point, I have stitched. All right. Andrew's going to get us a close-up of here. I won't tell you what just happened to him. He might have just fallen over and died. I don't know. Poor guy hit his head. Okay, so here we have all of our orange lines. And see, I'm so glad I had that in there so that you could see it better. There we go. And that went down each of those areas that you stitched in. All right. Now, let's see. Stitch the wrap, strip down. Do not remove the tape at this time. Okay. It stitched it, and then we will go through the process of doing that again as outlined in your instructions. Okay. Again, you would be pulling away the majority of it. And then either just washing it away, any extra little bits that stay in there, you would wash away with water, little spritz of a little water bottle. You could soak it, you could run it underwater, or you could use the iron away and just give it a little bit of steam. All right. So go ahead and go through that process. You're doing that process twice as outlined in your instructions for 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. But then you get to this and you're like, that don't look so good, Kim. Nope. Well, that's because we haven't done step 23 yet. So step 23 says you're going to use the head here And if you just lifted up these pieces, you're going to see the outline of your head. It's that oval. And I'm just going to use my scissors to cut. Let's see. There we go. That's better. To cut around. Just give that little mummy a little haircut. All right. Okay. Is it looking a little better, guys? Do you believe me when I say trust the process? Oh, he's looking so cute. Oh my gosh. Okay. Now you get the idea. Give him a little haircut. All right. Trim him up. You can wash away or iron away any extra stabilizer that you see. Give it, rub that head a little bit and let those fabrics fray even more. And there you have it. Now, let me show you another little tip for those eyes. Do you see how you're going to have, because the little dots of those eyes are so close together, you have what we call a jump stitch. All right. And if you have that jump stitch there, it's not a problem. It doesn't have to look like he has eyeglasses on. You can actually get rid of that thing. Let me show you how. Really quickly and easily, if I can find my tools. Okay, so I'm going to pull two tools out of this scissor set. Let me put the other ones in so you can see how pretty they all are. There we go. It's in this nice felt case here. So two tools I like for jump stitches are the tweezers and these little guys. They go right up to the tip, and it's just perfect for cutting those jump stitches. Now, the thing about the Kimberbell tweezers that people wonder, okay, Kim, a tweezer is a tweezer is a tweezer. Let me say that 10 times fast. A tweezer is a tweezer is a tweezer. Is not a tweezer, you guys. Not all tweezers are equal because the Kimberbell tweezer is specially made for this kind of thing. See, what we asked the manufacturer to do is we wanted a nice tip, first of all, that was nice and sharp and was skinny enough to slide underneath those jump stitches. But we also asked them to put a very subtle blade on all four sides. Can you see that? Let's see if we can get a close-up of that. Here we go. Oh, there. Oh, bring it back. Here.
Closer to the mummy. Closer to the mummy.
Closer to the mummy. There we go. Oh, there we go. Hopefully you can see that. These are nice and, man, they're like a weapon. Here we go. They are nice and sharp and thin at the tip. They're not going to hurt you, I promise. And then there's a very subtle blade on all four sides of this. You know what that means? It means I can slide this baby underneath that jump stitch and just pull in one direction or the other, and it's going to snip it right there. And then I'm going to pull up the thread with the tweezer part of it, and you're going to see that when you pull up a thread with these tweezers, that thread's not going anywhere. It has a nice tight grip to it. And then I'm going to use these little guys to get a nice close cut, and you'll never see that you had a jump stitch. So let's watch this in action. Kim, can you do this? Can you do this on camera? First of all, that's scary, right? So I just slid it underneath. See that? I slid it underneath because it has that nice sharp tip. It's just going to slide right under there. And I just pulled it. I just went, okay, cut the stitch right there. But now it cut the one end, but of course I've got the other little thread waiting to be cut too. So all I do is I feel like I'm performing surgery, guys. I need the snips. There we go. The scissors here. All right. I'm just going to pull that up with one hand with my tweezers. Again, it has a nice tight grip. That thread is not going anywhere. And then I'm just going to, there we go. Then I'm just going to slide those little snips underneath. Boom. I don't know how well you can see that, but there are no jump stitches between those two eyes. And you've got a nice, clean, close cut. Awesome. There's so many reasons why I love these scissors. I use them, of course, all the time. And for a lot of different reasons, but that's just one of the reasons why I like them. Okay, let's see. Did we do it? We talked about quilting in the hoop. We talked about piecing in the hoop. We talked about that broom block. Okay, you're going to do a few things different. If you're quilting that, you're going to want to look at what I said about the broom block. And we did the mummy block. So your homework tonight, my friends, for tonight and tomorrow is this. You are going to, now, if you didn't do your homework last Monday, you're in trouble. I used to be a 4th grade school teacher. I know who you are. Catch up. Do this block from Monday and the pumpkin block and this cute haunted house block. I'll have you know, my friends, I'm actually making 3 of these. 3 of them. Because they're so much fun and I've got to make them for some special people in my life. So there you go. That if I can do 3 of them in a week, you can do 1 or 10 of them in a week, right? I know many of you are making more. Tonight and tomorrow, before Friday, you're going to do these 2 square and a square blocks. Quilt them if you would like. If you're not doing quilting in the hoop, no problem. Just finish them as outlined in your instructions. You're also going to do this piece block right here with the broom, and you're going to do your mummy block. Now, do you want some extra credit? Here's some extra credit for you. Are you ready? If you would like. If you're on a roll and you're like, I got this, no big deal. I don't have to feed my family or myself in the next couple days. What I want you to also try and do, and there's really not many tips I could give you on this, so I figure, yeah, extra credit, right? Do the Mind Your Mummy block, Mind Your Mummy, and do the Bugs and Hisses block. All right, by Friday. And once you've done those, Friday, I'm going to show you how to do any of the border blocks, which you're like, okay, Kim, it's a plain block. No big deal, right? No, I'm going to show you how to quilt those border blocks, right? And this is what we'd consider a border block. Border blocks, when we talk about border blocks in Kimberbell quilts and stuff, it's like filler blocks. Okay, so these are filler blocks. Then I'm going to show you on Friday also how to do the sashing with the quilting, okay? And also this outer border with the quilting. This is a flanged border. Isn't that so cute? It's flanged. I saw someone ask earlier what size of quilt or what size of pillow form do you need for this? And Kimberbell has 18 by 18 inch square pillows at Pillow Forms at shops, and they can send you one, or walk into their store and they can get you one. Okay, this ends up being 21.5 by 21.5 because of the flange, but you actually use an 18 by 18 inch pillow form. Woo! Do we still have people watching? I sure hope so. Oh, so much fun. Okay. It looks like someone might have asked about a CD with this. There's not a CD for this. This is from the Kimberbell Vault. Kimberbell Vault. Many shops out there are affiliates of Kimberbell, have an affiliate link with Kimberbell. And so please use their link to shop in the Kimberbell Vault. They would appreciate it. And so you can certainly buy the pattern as an instant download through a Kimberbell affiliate link. If your shop is not an affiliate, then just go to kimberbell.com and you can find it in the vault and you can download it right away. All right.
We've got a question.
Questions? Yes.
Is the flying geese block quilted the same as the square in a square block?
The flying geese block, actually, it is quilted the same, but we are using a different quilting file. So again, if you go to, I think it's page 4 of your instructions, yeah, it will list what that quilting file is that we used. And of course, you could use any of the Kimberbell quilting files that fit that size of block. So that one, let's see, it's number 12. It looks like we used the horizontal one, Halloween one. Oh, it's the cute witch that's flying in the sky on a broom. That's super cute. I like that they chose that. So that's the one we used. But yeah, the quilting instructions are the same for you that that I did in the square and square block. Okay, you'll do the exact same. Just think of it as the exact same thing, just different fabrics you're working with, right? And a different quilting file. If you do not have a quilt, let's see, that is a 2x8. Okay, so that is a 2x8 quilting design. And you're thinking, well, I guess I can't do it because I only have a 5x7. You guys know what I'm going to say. Clear blue tiles is your answer for something like that. And I describe how we use clear blue tiles in this type of setting on Monday, this last Monday in part 1. So refer to that if you have a 5x7 hoop, okay? And still want to do that. If you have larger hoops, then don't worry about that for this, okay? Clear blue tiles, it was originally created just for traditional quilting, background quilting, no matter what hoop size you have, from a 4x4 all the way even up to a 9x14, you can use clear blue tiles. But we also, I showed you on Monday how to use them a little bit differently when doing a project like this, where it's a block by block. All right. We'll do a lot more tutorials, and you'll find a lot of tutorials online, or many quilt shops out there are doing tutorials on clear blue tiles as well. All right. Any other questions?
Is there batting in the flange?
Is there batting in the flange? You know what? Yes, I believe they did use batting in the flange in this sample. You don't have to, but if you want to do quilting on it, that would be really cute. I'll show you how to do that. Yep. And I don't know, can we get a close-up of this quilting that's on this inner border here? On this green border, I don't know how well you can see that, but it is the cutest. Oh, there we go. Cutest quilting. Do you see those little bats flying across the sky? Oh my goodness, adorable, right? That's one of our background quilting border designs. They come in all different widths. So you can get like a 1-inch width, which is perfect for like a thin border like that, or for sashing strips. And then 2-inch, 3-inch, 4-inch, 5-inch, 6-inch widths for your borders. And it all comes in the same download. It's awesome. Okay. Any other questions? Anyone ready to eat?
We got one
Andrew
more.
here is going, it's past my lunchtime. Throw him a Diet Coke, right? And a sandwich. We love you, Andrew. Okay, what's that?
Last one.
Yeah.
If quilting, then we go 1 hoop size larger for each block.
If quilting, do you go 1 hoop size larger on each block? Okay, that's kind of a question maybe for a larger discussion, but it all comes down to your embroidery field. All right, so embroidery field is the area that is stitched in this, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily the size of the hoop. With block by block quilting, meaning the batting is not in the seams, like something like this. And the batting is not in the seams. You don't want them in the seams because then you're going to have all this bulk, right? When you go to sew those blocks together. Then the quilting file will actually be 1/2 inch larger than what your block is, if that makes sense. Okay, so sometimes you do have to bump it up to the next machine size. So say, for example, you've got a 5x7 hoop and something says you need you're doing a 5x5 block, but in reality, it's a 5.5 by 5.5. We're just going to keep the math simple here. So you would have to bump up to a 6-inch a 6-inch embroidery hoop, right? A 6-inch embroidery hoop to accommodate for that. Now with Clear Blue Tiles quilting, which in all those downloads, you get both types. It doesn't have the batting and placement line because you're doing something that we would call traditional quilting, which is the backing of your fabric, the batting, the top, and then you quilt. That might sound a little confusing right now, me just saying it, but really, I promise it's not difficult. And the download instructions will have charts in there to help you know what the embroidery field is of those quilt blocks. It will also be part of the Clear Blue Tiles instructions. We have a whole chart on there so you can see which designs you can use. I hope that makes sense. Okay. I hope that makes sense. I promise you it's not hard. You just have to think about what are your hoops capable of? What can they stitch out? And when in doubt, go with a bigger size. So more often than not, you will go from a 5x7 to a 6x10, or from a 4x4 to a 5x7, or a 6x10 to a 7x11. It just kind of depends on what method you're using for quilting. All right, well, I think we'll call it good, guys. It is 2 o'clock our time. I will see you. Let's see, when will I see you next? Friday. You've got 2 days to get your homework done, plus extra credit, right? And if you missed my What's New Wednesday from this morning, you can still find it at Facebook on YouTube. There is actually a contest going on, a giveaway, where I'm going to be giving away 2 sets of the new embellishment kits. My mind is the embellishment kits for Candy Cane Lane. So check out that video and enter to win before midnight tonight, because 2 people will win the embellishment kits for that brand new Q pillow that's coming to a quilt shop near you in the next couple of weeks or so. If you just joined me and you didn't hear my little explanation at the beginning, just know that Candy Cane Lane is on its way, but there were some delays with fabric, and so it's coming. And as soon as shops get it, they will send it right out to you in the next two or so weeks, is what I'm guessing. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and I will see you on Friday. Until then, keep on sewing and have a whole lot of fun doing it. Bye-bye.